With a 64-bit power plant, a big battery, and a sizable screen, Google's Nexus 9 is a great showcase for the latest version of Android. But with a higher than usual price tag and a design best described as nondescript, is this truly the best tablet for Android lovers? And is it worth your money? I'm Michael Fisher with Pocketnow, here to hopefully help answer those questions in our Nexus 9 video review. There's an elephant in the room, so let's tackle it. Fit and finish. From the perspective of a Nexus product, this is exactly what you'd expect. A featureless slab of soft touch built to get out of the way of the software Google wants to show off. And that makes sense. But the Nexus 9 is also the first tablet from fancy phone maker HTC in almost 4 years. And honestly, you'd never know it. Yeah, there's a strip of metal around the sides, front-facing speakers, an interesting countersunk camera lens, and some cool color options. But in terms of look and feel, this has a lot more in common with last year's Nexus 5, with the addition of a cheap-feeling flex to its smudge-tastic back cover. I mean, come on, guys. Again, it's a comfortable design and a manageable size, but we can't help but be disappointed that HTC wasn't able to bring more of its signature high-end design to this hardware. If you're more of a fan of the book than the cover, the story gets much more interesting. The Nexus 9 breaks up the Snapdragon monotony with a processor from NVIDIA called the Tegra K1, a 64-bit chip using dual Denver cores and supported by 2 gigs of RAM. What's that mean for performance? We'll get to it in a second, but for now, we'll just say that it's a mighty powerful slab of silicon. There's no microSD expansion here, and storage options are limited to 16 or 32 gigs, or 11 or 25 if you want to be real about it. Another slight disappointment. What space the Nexus 9 lacks in storage, it makes up for in display area. Like a perfectly sized bowl of porridge, the 8.9-inch IPS panel is just right, allowing for a chassis that's easy to hold even one-handed, while providing enough display area to actually enjoy videos or actually accomplish work. Its black levels are nothing to scream about, and its color is fine. What's really notable here is the 4:3 aspect ratio, and how well the new version of Android works with it. Lollipop is the real star of the show here, and not just because the hardware is so forgettable. Visually speaking, Android 5.0 is the most significant, the most refreshing overhaul of Google's operating system since 2011. Google put a lot of TLC into the little things, like the coordinated animations when unlocking the screen, or the super quick jump to monochrome when locking it. Tapping items results in ripples, and pulling on a stopped list gives you waves. The fresh paint job on important or central items gives the whole interface a brighter, friendlier look and feel, with an almost playful attitude reflected even in the sound effects. And all this extra personality is implemented without compromising performance. The more you use it, the more fun little touches you discover. With Lollipop, Google also addresses one of our longest-held complaints: widgets. The janky, misaligned mess of years past has been replaced with a responsive design that keeps everything organized pretty well in both portrait and landscape modes. But you probably won't spend much time in widescreen, because Lollipop looks great in portrait. Google Now and Settings are prime examples, using a 2-column format to display more info at a glance, which means you don't have to scroll as much. And the added area also gives apps like the new Google Calendar room to play. Lest we praise our jobs away here, there are a few nits to pick. The new multitasking card view is nice in portrait, but feels like a waste in landscape, where a horizontal ribbon seems the better choice. Double tap to wake is a great add-on given the mushy side keys, but sometimes it takes a few taps to work. Auto brightness is so slow and indecisive that you're better off disabling it and adjusting display levels manually. And like all mobile devices, there are some sluggish bits on this one. Multitasking takes a few seconds to load sometimes. Rotating from portrait to landscape is also sometimes languid affair. Stress the thing with a bunch of high-demand games in a row, and it'll take some time to redraw the home screen. Minor stuff like this doesn't really take away from the slick, bright beauty of the OS as a whole, but it is a tad concerning given all the power under the hood here. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it for the next few months and report on how much lag creeps in our usual After the Buzz re-review. Sadly, but predictably, slick, bright beauty is not what you'll get from the Nexus 9 camera on either side. Whether you're using the 8-megapixel primary camera or the 1.2-megapixel front-facer, images aren't likely to get much better than fine. Google's camera app is great on a phone, but it's clumsy on a tablet. Manual exposure swings are too severe. Focus drifts too easily, and the shutter doesn't fire until a few beats after you hit the button. While you can get the occasional worthwhile photo out of it, the end results are never consistently impressive. You shouldn't be relying on your tablet as a camera anyway, and the Nexus 9 reinforces exactly why. For some, an NVIDIA processor is synonymous with gaming, so we tried out a wide range of titles on the Nexus 9. We're so used to Snapdragon-powered phones and tablets that we get thrown for a loop when one of our preferred games doesn't work. This isn't the Nexus 9's fault per se, it's just a symptom of some developers not coding for particular hardware, but compatibility is always something to keep in mind if you're excited about running a particular title on a new device. And oddly, some games which ran fine at first refused to run later on in our testing, so we don't know what to make of that. The good news is that the Nexus 9 runs many games with no trouble at all. Some of these are showcased in NVIDIA's Tegra Zone 2 app, a clunky but useful way to curate candidates when you've got a long flight coming up and a bunch of game-buying money burning a hole in your pocket. We tested flying games like Shadow Strike and Red Bull Air Race, adventure titles like Iron Man 3, and space simulators like Galaxy on Fire 2 and Interstellar Pilot. Most of these are elaborate and demanding, and we had to restart the tablet between titles to avoid crashes. But as Spock would say, sauce for the goose. That kind of thing is par for the course with any mobile device. And when games ran, gameplay was excellent. Google seems to have solved the overheating issue with its latest software update too. The tablet does get warm to the touch, but not the finger-sweaty hot we experienced in our first impressions pass. During gameplay, we get a really nice earful of audio from the twin boom sound speakers flanking the display, and that crosses over to movie watching too. Front-firing audio is where it's at, and HTC, as usual, has delivered, though we wish these were machined speaker holes. As they are, the slots gather a lot of dust. As for how well 16:9 media plays on a 4:3 screen, well, yeah, the letterboxing is a little annoying if you're paying attention to it, but put on a good enough movie, or turn the lights down a little, and you probably won't notice too much.
Sauce for the goose, Mr. Savick. The odds will be even.
Finally, how many movies can you watch before you'll need to plug in? HTC claims up to 9.5 hours on the 6700 mAh battery, and while we haven't had the time to watch the full Daniel Craig James Bond trilogy to test that promise, it's an easy one to believe. We got over 6 hours of screen-on time on our first charge, and even more on subsequent cycles, most of them with very heavy use. With more judicious use, it's easy to see the Nexus 9 lasting 2 or even 3 days between charges. Longer if you use the new battery saver built into Android 5. When I first laid hands on the Nexus 9 several weeks ago, my initial thought was, this is it? It seemed like a huge missed opportunity for Google to use HTC as the builder, but shackle it to such a dull and predictable design, like calling in a world-class chef to cook you Kraft macaroni and cheese. And I still feel that way about the hardware. It's powerful, it's comfy, and the boom sound is great, but overall, it's absolutely nothing special. As others have said, the real star here is Android 5.0, and where the hardware is a letdown, the software is just brilliant. Lollipop is the first version of Android I'd feel comfortable recommending to both a tech-reluctant parent and a tech-obsessed colleague. It's friendly yet powerful, unique but familiar, and on a 4:3 screen, it absolutely shines. Given that strange combination of stellar software and ho-hum hardware, the end result is worth buying. There's more positive than negative here, and this is a solid advancement of the Nexus family. But even though it's priced in line with other high-end Android tablets, $399 is a steep price to pay for the compromises you're getting in design, display, storage, and even performance. So you'll definitely want to wait for the price to come down before committing to this newest of the Nexi. For more Nexus 9 impressions, check out last week's Pocketnow Weekly podcast. Also be sure to check out our full Nexus 9 written review at Pocketnow, available November 14th, and please press the thumbs up button below if you enjoyed this video. Till next time, this has been Michael Fisher with Pocketnow, Captain Two Phones on Twitter, reminding you that a tightly glued back cover is a happy back cover. We'll see you next time.